Hello and welcome to The Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of The Gaggle, Peter Lavelle, host also of RT's talk show, Cross Door. Well, Peter, yesterday, Sean Hannity interviewed Donald Trump. Was unusual because it was actually a face-to-face interview. Normally, we just get the disembodied voice from Trump, but it was face-to-face. And Trump was surprisingly articulate, energetic. The contrast between him and Biden was very stark. He was able to articulate his views clearly. Naturally, he defended his policy towards the Taliban and criticized Biden's policy, particularly with the Taliban. In terms of, Hannity was trying to push Trump into saying, well, that if this had happened on your watch, you would have bombed the Taliban, you would have attacked them, and so on. Trump wouldn't take the bait. He never said that. Nope. He said that had he been there, he would have adhered to the May the 1st deadline, which Biden did not do. And he said that he would have got all the US military equipment out, and he would have conducted the evacuations of US military personnel, not Afghans, but US military personnel. He would have got them out much earlier. But he never took the bait and said, oh, yeah, if they'd have done this, I would have launched attacks against them. And he said the conditions, they said always conditions based. The conditions were, and Trump said this, no attacks on US forces, no support for Al-Qaeda, conditions that the Taliban had actually fulfilled. Incidentally, Trump, as is his wont, was quite complimentary about the Taliban. I mean, he said they're very good fighters, they're real tough guys, and they were tough negotiators. So it was an interesting
I found it really fascinating, and number one, Sean Hannity, for a change, kept his mouth shut most of the time, which was refreshing. Okay, it wasn't Donald Trump interviewing Hannity, because that's what Hannity usually does. Okay, yes. Really, he's a terrible interviewer. Yeah. Another thing, did you notice at the very end, Hannity got into a very convoluted question about 2024, right, and then Biden's decision-making up. It was completely convoluted. Yeah, and exactly. I really, Trump really can surprise you. Trump came out and said, I would exhibit leadership. That was very, very, very adept on his part, okay? Because he wasn't going to get hemmed in by Sean Hannity. What was really important, the second half of it is interesting to me because he was going through all of his accomplishments. But just as you pointed out, he talked about how the decision-making was made in his administration in getting out of Afghanistan and dealing with the Taliban, which I thought was really quite insightful, okay? Because all of the clowns that are working at the Biden administration, I can't make heads or tails of what they're saying because they're all terrified of what's going on, okay? Right. Because they have no idea what they're doing, as usual. But Trump, my opinion, and you just said it, I think it was the juxtaposition from Trump to Biden is really what the message they wanted to send there. Okay, it was someone who was very lucid, full of himself as usual, but we've gotten used to that with him. But it was very coherent and it was very thoughtful. And I think we saw kind of a more refined Donald Trump after his presidency more than we've ever seen before.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. Obviously he did what he usually does. He goes through all his triumphs. But what's always interesting about him is that he has the classic kind of realist view of foreign policy, which is he does acknowledge other countries' interests. Yeah. So when he talked about China, the first thing he always says, "Oh, I got on really well with President Xi. I hit him hard with tariffs, and he didn't like that. But I got on well with him." He always says the same thing with Putin. I hit him on the Nord Stream. He talked a lot of nonsense there, but I hit him on the Nord Stream pipeline. But I had very good relations with Putin. So I think his view is very much that as long as you recognize other countries' interests while you pursue your own, you can get on with other countries. It's when you start doing the whole, hey, I'm the humanitarian. I stand for values. I'm trying to save women, or I care about democracy in Russia, or Navalny and all this. That's when you get into trouble, because then you're insulting other countries, you're disrespecting the sovereignty of other countries, and Trump never did that. And I think that's
you'll never hear the words rules-based order coming out of his mouth.
Yes.
No, it's interesting. Again, watching it, it's interesting how Trump. Again, you and I criticized his presidency, I mean, endlessly for a lot of different reasons, for good reasons, I think, too. But he has these core ideas that he doesn't deviate from. Remember when it was during the 2016 campaign when he was, do you think Putin is a murderer, he's a tyrant? And he said, well, our hands aren't clean. You remember that?
That's right.
And, oh man, did he get attacked? But what we heard in that interview with Sean Hannity is the same kind of mindset. I mean, yeah, well, they do what they do. We do what we do. Okay. Right. And I'm going to take care of my country and my people.
Yeah. No, that was right. And that's why he seemed to, he made a painful contrast between the Taliban, who he thought were just tough guys, tough fighters, as opposed to our guy, President Ghani, who said, I always hated him. He was a crook, a sleaze bag. Look at the way he lived. He scarpered off with all that money. I don't know whether it's true. Probably true. I mean,
probably true.
So
Ghani, he flew out to Tashkent in Uzbekistan. I said Dubai in our last video, so I corrected.
But I heard that as well. But has that been confirmed? I mean,
no, it's another story.
Yeah.
Another story. But it's interesting is that I've been very critical of Trump's performance since his presidency. I don't like these newsletters things. It just doesn't lay a punch. This was something very, very interesting to watch. And he's basically signaling to half the country that, he's still around. He's still a player. He's very articulate. And I think it was a very smart move on his part, particularly if he intends to run again, which I think every indication
is. Because that question that was asked by Hannity about 2024, he said, well, the law, the election law prevents me from answering that question. But if I were able to answer the question, I think you would be very happy. That would seem to me, he intends to run. And I think all of his potential rivals in the Republican Party kind of assume that he's going to run. I mean, none of them is going to challenge him. I mean, it's like he has, he's pretty much completely total sway over the party.
And this is just my opinion, I'm just projecting right here, but I just have to wonder if Donald Trump was just thinking, well, that Biden had to take the shitstorm for Afghanistan, not me.
No, I agree.
Don't you think? No, because I think it would have been the whole thing was a fiasco. It was going to end this way, one way or another. The optics might have been a little bit different, but this is the way it was going to end. And Donald Trump is not in Mar-a-Lago saying, oh, Joe, you got caught. You holding the bag. Well,
that's it. Well, that's the price you pay. I mean, if you want that job, I want to be president. Okay, that's it. So when the the shitstorm comes, you're the one who's there. I mean, trying to blame it on your predecessor, it's not going to work.
That's one thing that George and I have done on the Gaggle here for a year now, because we started this a year ago. We always say, don't blame the guy before you. If it happens on your watch, it's on you. Okay. And we've never deviated from that. Okay. Right. When it happened to Trump, he's got to own it. Okay. Biden, you got to own it. Okay. Yeah. And just like that ridiculous speech that he gave, he said the buck stops here, and then he proceeded to blame everyone else around him. Okay. Yeah. I mean, my only regret is he didn't blame Harris.
Right. No, that's right. Yeah. It's that cliche. You remember that attorney general under Bill Clinton? I forgot her name. Remember that she was a big woman, and she was the attorney general at the time of Waco.
I can see her.
Yeah, big.
Reno.
That's it, Janet Reno. God, you've got a great memory. Yeah, Janet Reno. And then after that horrific debacle at Waco, that 25 children were killed, something 90 people were killed. I mean, it was absolutely appalling. The buck stops with me. Okay, now let's go get a bite to eat. It's like, as if you just say this, the buck stops with me, rather than, yeah, buck stops with me, so I'm handing in my resignation effective immediately. No, I just, buck stops with me. All right, I'm getting a little peckish now. Let's go.
The interesting thing also, going back to Trump's interview, one of the things that struck me is that before his inauguration and all during his presidency, they were his enemies, his political enemies in the media and the political class always talked about the people that he hired to work for him. Well, I guess now, they have nothing to say because Biden has hired the most incompetent foreign policy group that I have ever seen in my lifetime. Ever. I mean, these people, it really started really going downhill from Madeleine Albright, okay? Because none of these people were policy people. They were all political and ideological.
That's right. That job, that Secretary of State job, they've had so many of these awful mediocrities. I mean, you got all of this Madeleine Albright and then Condi Rice. Well, there was Colin Powell. I mean, who was supposed to be the safe pair of hands, and then
Hillary Clinton.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. The awful mediocrity. So who occupied that position. But I guess Blinken is such a sort of innocuous figure. He's not quite as poisonous as, say, Madeleine Albright. Or Hillary Clinton. I mean, I think they did more harm than Blinken so far.
With Blinken, there's a video now that will haunt him for the rest of his life. We're not expecting, like, for example, from Friday to Sunday, the government. Oh my God. I mean, that is truly horrifically embarrassing. Okay, because it's exactly what happened. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right.
Okay, well, George and I wanted to do this because, we're not fanboys of Donald Trump, not by any stretch of the imagination. But what we found interesting is that he's still part of the conversation, and he added to it. I've been very critical of many of his public statements and certainly his tweeting, but I thought that was a very solid performance considering people running the country right now.
Right. No, I agree.
All right, everybody. We're on local, so please go to thegaggle.locals.com. George and I are doing Q&As. The Gaggle store is up. George has already gone out to do some live streaming, and we're still planning.
Very shortly. We'll be doing our inaugural super chats. So really looking forward to that. Just got to get the logistics right as to what's the best day and time to do it. But it's coming very shortly.
Let me do it this time.
All right, go ahead.
And we do have a tip jar. We do like to kind of have a little bit of fun with it, but seriously, folks, I mean, it's really helpful for us to develop more products, and we do invest a lot of time here. We do this almost every single day, multiple videos. So we'd really like to see your appreciation, because we do take it seriously. And one of our selling points, we're not like the talking heads on TV. George and I have actually lived through most of the things that we talked about. Okay, yes. So the tip jar should reflect that, in my humble opinion. Okay.
Yep. I couldn't agree with you more. Remember, if you like the Gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.